Hi, welcome back, GCC family, to our beginning our fourth week of daily devotionals, going through the Gospel of John. And I hope that yesterday you were able to watch our message, our Easter message on the cross and the tomb and how Jesus redefined those things, finishing off the Redefined series yesterday. Hope you had a great Easter. Hope you got to spend some time with your family, whether it's through Zoom or FaceTiming, or whether you live together and you're able to do that. And so during this time, we started this devotion now almost a month ago, 3 weeks ago, and we have just been going slowly through the book of John, the Gospel of John. We are in John chapter 6, in the middle of that, and we are just continuing to let God's word speak to us. I hope you are learning through this. I appreciate all the feedback I've gotten. Appreciate you guys letting me know how this is helping you, and that's great. Thank you so much for letting me know that. And we're going to continue to do this and continue to dive in God's word. And let's do that. In John chapter 6, verse 16 through 24. Okay, that's what we're going to read today. And now, when we left off on Thursday, because we did Good Friday devotional on Thursday, the last thing we talked about how Jesus multiplied the loaves and the fishes, how he fed the 5,000, one of his greatest miracles. And at the end of that, remember, Jesus had walked off by himself. He went to a mountainside to be alone, to pray with God. He knew that they were going to try to make him his king, and he knew that wasn't his mission. And so today we're going to continue from there in verse 16, all right? When evening came, his disciples went down to the lake, where they got into a boat and set off across the lake for Capernaum. By now it was dark, and Jesus had not yet joined them. A strong wind was blowing, and the waters grew rough. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus approaching the boat, walking on the water, and they were frightened. But he said to them, "It is I, don't be afraid." Then they were willing to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat reached the shore where they were heading. The next day, the crowd that had stayed on the opposite shore of the lake realized that only one boat had been there, and that Jesus had not entered it with his disciples, but that they had gone away alone. Then some boats from Tiberias landed near the place where the people had eaten the bread after the Lord had given thanks. Once the crowd realized that neither Jesus nor his disciples were there, they got into the boat and went to Capernaum in search of Jesus. Okay, so there's two things here, two different scenarios, 2 different days actually, that we're reading about here, and 2 lessons, I think, for us to learn in those things. And so we're going to talk about that. The first thing that happens, and this happens that evening after Jesus multiplied the loaves and the fishes. It's been a long day. You have all these thousands of people there, and you have this event that would have just been, wow, amazing. And then they ate good. So you're tired when you eat good. You're probably tired, exhausted. And the disciples, they are on a boat. Jesus had told them, actually, the Gospels tell us that Jesus had told the disciples to go ahead of him and that he would meet them in Capernaum. And so the disciples are doing that. They're on a boat, and all of a sudden they're actually heading home. Capernaum is where a lot of them, that's where they lived. And so they were heading home after a long day and eventful few days, and they're on their way home, and all of a sudden they see the storm and Jesus walking on the water. And their human instincts is like, they're afraid. They're frightened. What in the world is going on, right? Because that's a whole nother level, because there's just that, the unknown of that. I think that we fear the unknown, right? That's a lot of times what it is. The unknown is very scary to us. And so I can imagine the disciples being freaked out. In fact, one of the other accounts of this in one of the other gospels says that they thought he was a ghost. And so they were freaking out because they think he's a ghost, and they were afraid, and they were panicking and worried and frightened. And Jesus says, "It is I. It is I. Don't be afraid." Right? And basically he's saying, listen, remember who I am. Because in those moments when we're afraid, we lose all grasp of what has happened, and just, our fear kicks in, and when we're afraid, we are very irrational as far as that goes. When we are afraid of things, we don't think about what has happened before, because just earlier that day they had saw him multiply the loaves and fishes. So him walking on water, that had never been done before. So that I could get why they were afraid, but at the same time, it was Jesus. They had seen him do amazing things. So why were they so afraid? And I get that. That's what Jesus is saying. Listen, it is I. Remember who I am? Remember. Don't be afraid. And because it is I, don't be afraid. And some things look worse than they actually are. That looked really bad to the disciples. This ghost, what is this person? Who is this person that's walking on water? It looked worse than it really is, and Jesus just gives them peace, I think, from when he reminds them, it is I. That's just a thing. And listen, it's I. Calm down. Don't be afraid. And it says then they were willing to let him on the boat, and it almost gives that picture of they weren't willing to let Jesus come on the boat at first. They were afraid. They were distancing themselves from Jesus in this because they were afraid of what was going on. And then once they realized it's him, and Jesus said, don't be afraid, then they were willing to let him come on the boat. Okay, so then you have that. That's that night. The next day, we see another scenario happen. The crowd that had been there when Jesus fed them the loaves and fishes, they had seen him multiply, taking 5 loaves and 2 fish, and they seen it happen. They were there, and he fed them. If you want people to come back after you feed them, right? Everybody knows that, right? If you have children, you feed them, they keep coming. And this is what happened. He feeds them and takes care of them, and they experience how amazing Jesus is. And the next day, they realize, he's not here. He's gone. And they want more of him. See, that day before, that was filling. They had been filled for Jesus. Jesus went off by himself, and they let him go by himself because, man, they had been filled with his bread that he gave them, his bread and his fish. And man, they had just experienced this amazing thing about Jesus. And then the next day, though, that desire for him was more. Remember, they were following him before that because they'd seen the miracles he did. And so there was that every day, this group of people were following him, were finding him, were seeking him. And they say, let's go find where he went. Let's go to Capernaum. Let's go. Let the boats come in. All right, let's go. Let's make our way over there. Let's go find him again. We need more of Jesus. We need more of Jesus. So here are the 2 takeaways today for us. One is very, the first one, really obvious, something we all know. Don't be afraid, right? Don't be afraid. When we are afraid, remember who Jesus is. Remember who he is, because sometimes, like I said, it's worse than it actually seems. And sometimes we let that fear make things worse than it seems. We get in our head about it, and we start thinking, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And it kicks in, and we have to remember who Jesus is and remember he's with us. Look, they almost didn't let him on the boat because they were afraid. We need to make sure we are letting Jesus in, right? Letting him into our lives, letting him on the boat with us. And fear will sometimes keep him away from that. And so don't be afraid. Remember who Jesus is. And the second thing from this group of people that we can learn is to, every day seek Jesus. Every day go looking for Jesus. In the morning time, go looking through him. We are grateful. This is what we are doing. We're reading our Bibles. We're seeking Jesus. We're looking for him. We're looking at his words. We're listening to him. Spend time in prayer. Seek him. Seek his presence. Seek him. Seek his guidance. Seek Jesus. Every day, desire more of him. Okay? Every day. I hope that you do that today, church. I hope you have a great day. I hope this encourages you today. And I want you to know I'm praying for you. We love you, church. Grace Community Church. We miss you so much. I'm so looking forward to the day when we are back together again at the church building and worshiping together and everything. But I'm also grateful for this time, and I really am enjoying doing these devotionals. I'm enjoying that they are helping you, and so I hope this continues to bless you guys. Have a great week, church. We love you guys.